Today's session is about how to use the process tools in TouchStone to actually document a process. So we're going to go over all of the functionality on the process tools page, as we call it, and then specifically work plans and checklists. And then I'm going to end with a new process of the week. For those of you who've been with us this whole time, the topic of this quarter's training sessions is about management and getting employees to use processes, how to manage employees with processes, how to manage employees in maybe a whole different way than you've done before. So I've highlighted a few processes as we've been through the first few sessions related to management, and then we're going to continue on with that thought process today. So I'm going to go over here to the 4 key functions, and then I'm just going to choose one of the key functions, and then I'm going to click on a process. So I'm going to choose this process right here. So this is called the process tools page, and this is where a process is documented. So you have to have the right level of access to be able to get to and see this screen, administrators or create access. This screen right here where we document a process is not where the process is accessed by employees and used. This is where it's created. There's another way to get to a process, and that's by going through the organization chart. So either through the 4 key functions, or you go to a position on the organization chart. And if you've linked the process to the position, then you can click it from there. So here's customer complaints again. So either through a position on a job description or through the 4 key functions. I can see right here that this process is in the doing the business section of the 4 key functions. And then if I click this link right here, I can see all of the positions that it's been linked to. So it's been linked to this position and this position. So it's kind of like seeing it in a circle. You see the list on the 4 functions to the org chart to the process and and around again. From this, with this little toolbar item, since we're here, you can link and unlink processes from positions using this link chain, link to job description. So if I want to add it, I just click it, and now this one's orange, and that means this is on that job description. If I want to remove it, I just select it, and now it's removed from that job description. All right. So over to the left on this hand side, we have all of the tools, or I like to call them templates, that we have available for you to document a process with. The first one at the top here is called a work plan. And a work plan is just simply a step-by-step set of instructions, actions, tasks, descriptive wording on how something's done. You can have one work plan like this process has, or you can have multiple work plans. And it's just a matter of whether there are multiple things that happen or multiple workflows within the process. This tool is called a checklist, and a checklist is for quality control. It's for somebody literally ticking off the boxes as they do the work. Next tool down is called a script, and a script is a documented conversation. Frequently asked questions, anything that's said verbally. Uploaded files tool here will allow you to take different forms of documents, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, or a PDF document, and upload that whole document to the process. This document tool, we call it the document tool because it's like a blank Word document. So you can upload Word documents here if you want to keep them in the Word format or software format, or you can use the document tool here to build anything that you would in Word, essentially. The custom form tool is a form builder. So it builds headers and multiple choice questions and checklist boxes and fill in the blanks. Policy note is a documented policy rule on the process itself. So we're in this customer complaint process. So we see all of this documentation on how to handle customer complaints, and we also see any policies related to it. So this is a rule, something safety, legal, compliance related. There's always this question because these terms are thrown around a lot. Policy, procedure, SOP, system. Policy or procedure, system, process, that all means the same thing to me anyway. It's a documented set of tasks or instructions on how work is done. A policy lives in that. So there are policies related to any process, and we have them put you put them into a tool right inside the process itself. Lastly, audio and video files. So you can shoot training videos and upload those to the process as well as audio files. So starting today, we're going to go through work plans and checklists. Next week, we're going to finish up with the rest of the process tools. I'm going to show you technically how to build a work plan, how to build a checklist, and then we're going to get into what makes a good work plan. How do you think through documenting a process? And I'm also going to show you some other tools that can help with that as well. So we're right on the title of the process. And I know that because I see this toolbar row here. And I also see the title as the first point in this breadcrumb trail. If you want to edit the title of a process, you just click right on it. So you see this opens. Most everything in TouchStone, if you're thinking, how do I edit it? You click right on it and it opens for you to edit. There are clearly headers that can't be edited, like you can't change this process tools title right here. But anything that you've typed in or has come from our library, click right on it, you can edit it. Under the process is what we call the objective. If I click that, it's going to open to edit as well. So the title is typically a capital letter in front of each word. They should be short and clear, usually 2-3 words at the most. If you ever have a sentence or a phrase that is your title, then you should rethink that because you're naming something, you're not describing it. The description of what is in it comes down here in this objective field. These objective fields also show up when it's linked to a position on the org chart. So with the idea being that somebody could read the title, customer complaints, they could also read the objective and know what is in this process without having to click on it. So I feel like these objectives are pretty important to fill in and use. The objective. Sorry about that. I just muted it. So the objectives should be clear and concise. They should never be more than a sentence or a phrase. They shouldn't be like a paragraph of information, because if you're starting to put in more than, I would say, a sentence or a phrase, you're typically deciding or starting to describe how to do it. And those actions actually belong best over here inside the work plan. So I'm going to hit cancel and cancel on this. So just going through this toolbar row right here, this first icon allows you to put the process in the public folder. So the public folder is over here on the dashboard. So right here, this is the public folder. So the public area or folder on the dashboard is for processes that are company-wide. So they are processes that everybody in the company, everybody has to use them. You're generally going to see a lot of HR processes here, like the employee handbook, time off and request forms, any kind of payroll forms that people are asking for. How do I get a copy of that? Or how do I update my W-2? Things that everybody needs to have access to and use. Like emergencies and injuries, that's always a good public process. Strategy things like the management philosophy, that's for everybody in the whole company should know what the management philosophy is. Mission, purpose, values, that's also a good one to have as a public process. Software how-tos that everybody in the business uses that software. So we have like CRM how-tos. And the idea is that somebody, if they're looking for these everyday regular things, they can go right to the dashboard and find them. Processes that don't belong here in the public folder are processes that are the accountability of just one or two or one whole department on the org chart. So if that process is just the accountability of this department or this person and this person, then it doesn't belong in the public folder. And the reason is, if you mixed things here that are company-wide with things that only some people do, nobody's going to really know, whose is what. I'm not going to know that it's my responsibility to do this process or follow it if it's in the public folder when you start mixing it with things that people know they don't do. So processes that are the accountability of one role or of a whole department, they get linked to the job descriptions, to the positions on the chart that who is accountable for them, and then they show up here in the dashboard. So all of these processes. I've heard people say before, well, I like to have everything here just so I can see it and find it. You're not going to get that result in the end, because if you put everything here, only you're going to know that it's there and why it's there. And when I look at this as an employee, I'm not going to really know anything about what you're expecting me to do or how to find things really. It's much easier to put it here in the dashboards on the control panel. I know it's one extra click to click here and then see it, but it's the functionality you get and the ability to control and manage with processes is way expanded here. The dashboard here is usable, but it's not as intuitive. So let's go back here. And I spent a little extra time talking about the public processes because sometimes when I first look at someone's account, I'll see a lot of things there that aren't supposed to be there. So if that's you, like, rethink that. This toolbar item here marks the process as complete. So that has to do with the color coding here on the 4 key functions and everywhere in TouchStone. These black processes have been marked as complete. These blue processes have been started. There's some tools in them, some documentation has occurred, but it's not finished yet. And then red here is just a title. So there's nothing in a red process, it's just the title. So the color coding is supposed to help you see the progression of the documentation of your processes and allow you to decide that something is finished and that you're ready to have every employee using it. You manually tick this box off. And if it's been selected, it shows as green. If I unselect it, then you can see it shows as gray. I want to complete it again, click it, and now it's green. We talked about this link chain. This will link the process to a role on the org chart. And then this is delete the whole process. So if you click this, you're going to have one chance to change your mind, and then you'll delete the process, which deletes all the tools and everything inside of it. You can also go to the 4 key functions, and right here you can delete. So that's just an additional way to delete. Only administrators can delete. Even create users can't delete processes, only administrators. So that's one of the reasons why we suggest you think through who's an administrator, because you want to trust them enough to know what to delete and what not to delete. If you accidentally delete a whole process for whatever reason, contact support and we can restore it for you. So it's something you don't want to do, but if it happens, no need to freak out. We can restore everything. Okay, so let's start talking about work plans. So to build a work plan, I click this little plus sign right here on the plus sign, and all these tools work the same way. Then I get prompted for the title of my work plan. So here you want to put in the name of the work plan. If you've decided that this process, customer complaints, is only going to have one work plan, like it's a series of things that happen from beginning to end and that's it, then the title of the work plan can be the same as the title of the process itself. So customer complaints, that's fine. When you want to have the titles different is when you're going to have multiple work plans, because you want to then define or create what that workflow is within the process itself. The work plan also has an objective. Again, if it's one work plan, the objective can be the same as the objective of the process. if it's not, if it's going to be 2 or more work plans, then you want to put the purpose in here of this particular work plan. So I'm just going to hit create here, and then here's the new work plan. I'm going to go back here to the 4 key functions and just show you an example of something with multiple work plans. So let's go to running the business here. And let's go to accounts payable. So the process is called accounts payable, but in here, there are 4 different work plans. There's a work plan on invoicing. There's a work plan on how to do special invoices. There's a work plan on how to pay with credit card or ACH payments. There's a work plan on how to do check payments. So this is an example of multiple workflows within a process and creating multiple work plans. The titles you can see are all different with here, and the objectives would be different as well, slightly different. So before you even begin documenting a process, I think it's a good idea to think to yourself, is this going to have one work plan or will it have multiple work plans? If you decide it's going to have one, and then as you're getting into it, you realize that, it should be 2, you can create a second work plan and then start in on that and take the tasks from the one you started and start building them in the second. If you've built multiple work plans, then you can then take those and combine them into one. Let's go down to this now. So this is what the work plan looks like when you just create it and nothing's been built in it yet. To start to build the work plan, I start by adding a task. And then I click open the task field, and then this is task 1. Then I save that, and then I go to the second task. So this work plan template is forcing you into step by step by step. So you do first step, second step, third step. This toolbar is very similar to most word processing that you've probably seen. There are 2 special things within this. You can create hyperlinks, first of all. So this is the little link chain right here. We'll create a hyperlink. So you highlight what you want to be the link word. So this would be the word that turns blue, and like I can click on these 2 words to then go to the hyperlink. You hit the hyperlink chain, hit the drop down. First type of link you can have is called a URL link. So this is going to be a link to something outside of TouchStone, some other software or a website or a web page. Anything with a URL you can link to. If you have another web tool and you want to refer to a page or something within that other tool, you just go up and highlight the URL of that and copy it and then choose URL and then paste it right into this field and hit insert. Sometimes I see people who have just like taken the whole URL and cut and pasted it into the task, which is fine, that still works, but it just looks a little neater when you have it like, I'll show you, copy this, if I paste it in here, and then I hit URL, and then you hit insert, you can see it's nice and just clickable here. It's much different than having it be like this whole URL right here. So if you see these, like people have done this, then just clean them up. Just take this URL and cut it out. And then go to the hyperlink tool and use the URL link and paste it in there. Other types of links that you can create are links from a work plan to a process, like a whole nother process in TouchStone. So I choose processes and then I hit the drop down here, and now I'm seeing every single process that I have in TouchStone in alphabetical order. You go down to the process that you want to link to, and then you hit insert. And then when that link is selected, it will take the person to this new process. So this is, you want to use a link like this when somebody needs information from one process to finish another. So in this step of this work plan, I'm performing an action that exists outside of the work plan, like it's a whole nother process. And I will create a link to it rather than repeating the steps of that process. You can also link from a work plan to another work plan. Same idea. I click work plan, I hit the drop down, and now I see all my work plans in TouchStone. So you can go from a work plan to any other process tool here. You can also insert images. You can click this icon and then browse to find an image, or you can just drag and drop the image into the field. I use, where is it? I use a tool here called Capture, which I like a lot. You can also use your snipping tool, which is your operating system, if you have a Mac, will be different. So this tool is inside your operating system already, or you can download another free tool. I like Capture because after you choose the image, so here's what it looks like when you create an image. I'm just going to drag, like if I wanted to just pick this, once you capture it, then you can do funny things like put like arrows in, like that, or you can highlight things, and you can change the color of the highlight. So you can see all of these cool things you can do to make your image look a little different. In the standard snipping tool inside of my computer, for example, that snipping tool, it doesn't have these little fancy things you can do. Inside of this capture, or even in the other ones, I just hit copy here, and then I can paste it right into here, just like that. Some version of that exists inside of other snipping tools. You just want to hit copy, or sometimes it automatically copies and you can just right click paste. Or you could have taken that image if it was like on your desktop and drug it into the field, and then it would appear here. Once the image is inside, you can then do text underneath it or above it. And I'm going to hit this for a second. I can also resize it just by dragging it in here and dragging it out. If you've taken a really big picture, sometimes it goes beyond the view screen here. So all you have to do is pull down the task like this and then pull the scroll bar over until you get into the bottom corner here, and then you can pull it up and down. Anytime you can take a picture of how some things look, it's wonderful for documentation, because that's less I have to do in words explaining things if I can show a picture. Underneath the tasks, there's a second section of the work plan called expectations down here. So the tasks are the to-do items, they're the steps, they're the description. They have all the detail of the step that's taken. An expectation is just general things that you want to say about the tasks or about the whole process itself. That could be subjective, they could be timing, they could be why something's important. In expectations, I think context is a good thing to talk about. So why is it important that you follow these steps in this way? That is another kind of nod to management too, because if you are teaching someone how to follow a process and you can explain the why of it, like why it's important, then it sticks with people better and they understand. So to add an expectation, you just click add expectation, same as the tasks, and then you add your expectation here and hit save. Break these apart just like you would do the tasks. So when anybody's learning something, if you can see it in clear, concise sentences or phrases and not in paragraphs, then I can remember it and see it better. So second expectation, add, and then put in the second expectation. So break them apart, save. Tasks and expectations can be reordered too, just by drag and drop. So if you want to make task 1 task 2, or if I want to make 2 1, I just drag them up and down to reorder them. Again, most everything in TouchStone, just like click to edit, is also drag and drop. And you hold your mouse down and you drag up and down. These work plans, for example, I can reorder those just by dragging up and down. All right, so let's talk about what makes a good work plan. So I'm going to go to this one as an example. So first thing is, when you go to document your work plan, think of the objective first, because the objective helps you to decide where does this process start and where does it end and what happens in between. Sometimes when we're creating a process, if you let yourself think about it in a detailed way, you start to like deviate off into other processes. So the objective really helps you to bring it back to the purpose of this process. If you're going off in thinking of the steps and if thens and it's getting up into a whole nother arena or area, stop yourself, maybe go add that process that you were thinking of when you went in a different direction, and then come back to the workflow of the one you're on. And again, the objective will help you to decide what is the scope of the process. So once you've decided the title and the objectives, begin by thinking of the first thing that happens. So depending on what the process is, it could be an action that happens first. So gather the following information, or you could start with a task that kind of sets the stage. You can say, when a job is done, then this starts, or we know that a customer complaint has come in when we get the customer complaint form filled out, or when a customer complains either by calling in or sending an email. You'll know that you have a complaint in these situations. So it's either the first step or it's setting the stage of how it begins. So first step, and then go second step, next step, and then go next step. And each time add a task, add a task, add a task. People often ask me, well, why can't I just do this in Word or write it up and then cut and paste it in a TouchStone? If you do that, then you're going to lose the benefit of the template, because this template, by its very structure, is forcing people into step by step by step.
Said you're ready to go, and I'm like,
Sorry, why her phone keeps unmuting. So think about the step by step by step. So let's talk about structure of tasks or steps. So this one says, gather the following information you need to address the issues: client's name, client's phone number, location of the job. Also ask what service or product was performed and any of the details necessary to help you address the situation. It's like, wow, right? Like that's a lot. That's it. I can read it and I kind of get what's being said. There's a lot of description in here. It's like run-on sentences two together. It's a task, yes, but is it the best way that we could have written it? I would say no, because it's kind of writing it in descriptive sentences with a lot of kind of detail and explanation, which is good, but the way it's constructed is what the problem is. So another way to do it would be gather the following information. You need to address their issues. So this is suggesting we're going to have a list here, right? So you could do a colon, and then this is where the list starts. So client's name, I would probably bullet that. Then I need the phone number. Then I need the location that the job was performed. Also ask, that's not part of the list. So now it's starting to look like more like this outline. You can do bullets within bullets just by tabbing in. So you see it's starting to kind of look a little different now. So bullets and bullets, or you can do numbers of numbers. So let's save it here. So now it's formatted in a bit of a different way, and I'm seeing gather the following information to address the issue: client's name, phone number, job performed. Also all the details that will help you address the situation. That should probably not be a bullet, but I think you get the idea. Break these actions or these descriptions into an outline more than it is sentences. If you look at a task that someone's written or you've written and it's a paragraph of information, that would be like the first sign that it could be formatted differently or better. If your tendency is to tell a story about what's happening, try to move away from that and think more of clear delineated steps. Think of it like an outline. There shouldn't be a lot of descriptive words, not a lot of flowery language. You want to try to be as technical as possible. When you're developing a hard system, I would call it, like a hard system is something that's tends to be pretty practical and straightforward and has got clear delineated steps, like a customer complaint process. it's much easier to kind of do it in this fashion where you're doing an outline and bullets of bullets. When you're developing a soft process, something that's more objective or subjective, and it has some qualities to it, that's where it gets harder to build into this outline, but it's still possible. And so I would tend to try to make it more kind of analytical or technical in the writing. Here's another example. Locate the customer's invoice. If you can't find the invoice using their name, ask questions to determine the name of their job. Ask the customer what date the job was completed on or what the technician's name was. Speak clearly. Say, I'm happy to help you, but so this is good content. You're trying to get the step across here. But again, as I'm reading it, and I'm sure as you're looking at it, it's just it's a lot of information that's kind of hard to digest. The first clue that's in something like this is when I'm saying speak or say this, ask this. That indicates to me that this process needs a script, because a script shows a back and forth of a conversation. It shows frequently asked questions. It shows the verbal interaction. You can write it in the task like this, but it's much harder for me to learn it when it's in this style. So this is saying a lot about an invoice, how to find the invoice, why it's important to find it, how to work through the customer's issues on finding it. So up here, I've made a invoice script. So if I click this, you'll see that those same words are built now into this script. So the prompt is ask the customer for their name in order to allocate the invoice. This is exactly what was in that script. But now I've got the words under here that I'm using to then get the result of what I'm describing up here. So is the job under your name or someone else's? I can't find it. Do you have a copy? And then another prompt, if they get agitated or they're getting irritated with you not being able to find it, speak calmly and empathetically. And then here are examples of what I would say and how I would say it. So in the work plan, all you would need to do is go here and you don't need to, you say locate the customer's invoice. This is what's in the script now. So I'd probably delete that and put use the script. Then I highlight this, go to the hyperlink tool right here, go to script because that's what I'm looking for. And this is called the invoicing script. So these are all in alphabetical order. Find it and then hit insert and then save it. So that's completely different, right? This says locate the customer's invoice. Maybe it's as simple as, do you have the invoice? Yes, I have it. Fine, we move on to step number 3. But if it gets complicated, like you can't find it, then we use this script here, which is actually right here. And then the script helps the person to see more clearly and with a lot more information on, how you work someone through trying to find their invoice. Okay, let's go back here. A lot of times when I look at work plans, probably 75% of the time, I'll look at it and think to myself, this is just not enough detail. So number 3 is an example of that. Determine whether this is a warranty issue. Well, that's a good step, right? But how? How do you determine if it's a warranty issue? So ask yourself this question of, how? So maybe it's some bullet points here on, where or how you determine if it's a warranty issue. So maybe you do 2 or 3 bullets. And now suddenly you haven't left someone with this dearth of information and you're now building it with another level of detail, which explains the how to determine that. There's an important concept when you're documenting anything, and it's to think about what are the minimum qualifications of the person who's going to be doing this work. That always answers the question, is it enough detail or is it not enough detail? So the minimum qualifications are what are the skills of that person when you hired them? So this goes back to recruiting and hiring. What are the minimum skills of a person who's going to be doing customer complaints? If I hire a customer service person, if I hire a technician who's going to be handling complaints, the fact that they have to run this process, what kind of education should they have? What kind of experience should they have? Then your documentation could start from that point forward. So I would assume a basic level of knowledge, and then I need to write the process from that point forward. So for example, if a customer service rep who's handling customer complaints, if they have to have a college education, they have to know how to use a computer, they have to have writing skills, they have to have good communication skills, all of that I would have vetted before I even hired them. Now, my process that I'm writing, I don't have to explain how to open a Word document or how to fill out a form. Maybe if I'm hiring someone with 10 years of customer service experience, maybe I don't even like need these scripts over here on customer complaint knowledge or how to provide a solution or how to speak to somebody who's upset. Maybe I don't even have to teach them that because I hired them with that knowledge. Usually the opposite is true though. You want to try to hire someone from a base point where you can afford to pay them without a whole lot of extra professional skills and experience. And then your processes make up the difference. You know, Michael Gerber used to say, hire the person with the least amount of skills possible. People always got all over him for this, but he didn't mean it in a negative way. What he's meaning is hire someone with minimum skills and then allow your processes to teach them, allow your processes to grow their skills and information. And the better your processes are, the least amount of skills your new employees need to have. Another example of this idea is if you're in professional services and you go out and you hire a lawyer who's supposed to be or a doctor, you don't need to teach those people how to be lawyers and doctors in your processes. You assume those minimum qualifications and then you build it from that point forward. Okay, here's another thing that I often see in formatting of work plans or tasks. You see how this is bolded right here or right here, this is bolded and underlined. Try to stay away from that. Sometimes people turn the text red. This is like interjecting your own personal kind of writing styles and into the description or into the text. It may look good and you may like it, but another person who's also documenting may not be doing that. So either decide that you want to bold everything for emphasis and then leave it up to whoever's writing it to decide what to emphasize, or simply explain to people, we're not going to bold and underline and red score things. Let's just write it normally, and then all the documentation will, look the same. This is also an example of an if-then. So if this is not a warranty issue, then do this. If this is a warranty issue, then do this. So these turning points come in workflow, and you can handle those in an outline format without a flow chart with if-then statements. This is an example of linking to a process that's outside of this work plan. So this says log into the CRM and go to the customer screen. This is a whole nother process on how to log into the CRM or CRM how-tos. So if you get to a place in your documentation where you want to refer to something else, or you're starting to go off in a direction that is moving outside of the result of this process, then think to yourself, either let's find the other process on CRM how-tos that we can link this to, or if that doesn't exist, let's make a process on CRM how-tos and then link to that. If you don't do that, then you could potentially end up replicating things over and over again. So if I had to have 5 steps on how to log into the CRM inside of every process where I logged into the CRM, well, then now I'm creating duplicate steps. It's better to hyperlink to that process. Here's another example of that. Enter flags into the actions into the CRM. So that links to another work plan outside of this process. So throughout this, you're going from the start, if-thens, if necessary, all the way to the end. So decide where the process ends. You can end a process with the beginning of another process if you choose, and you can make a hyperlink to that, or you can end it with where this process finishes if it's clear. Here's a few examples of expectations. Always be mindful of the customer satisfaction guidelines. So this is a hyperlink to a document over here, customer satisfaction guidelines. Listen to the customer's complaints, stay calm, be respectful. So think about, is there anything that's important about this that I want to point out in an objective? Is there timing? Every customer complaint should be resolved within 24 hours. Seek to solve a problem. You can give, again, context here, the whys of something. Sometimes there are no expectations. So if you can't think of them, then there aren't any. So, come back to it another day. But oftentimes, if you just give it some thought, you can think what makes this or what makes a person go above and beyond with handling a customer complaint? What are the keys to someone's success in doing this that someone else may not know about? How is someone who is incredibly successful at doing this better than the other person who's not? And if you can articulate those into expectations, then you can see obviously how that's going to make the training a lot easier and better for anyone who's learning it. Okay, so let's talk about this toolbar row and then we'll move on to checklists. This first icon is our AI, and this will generate example work plans. So I'm going to go here to this blank work plan we have here, and I'll go to the AI, create a step-by-step for, and you type in the prompt. So it's already said create a step-by-step for. So if we go create a step-by-step for customer complaints in a HVAC company. Those of you who've used ChatGPT, you'll know that the better the prompt is, the more detailed your information is going to be. So put in any information here that's going to help dictate the results. You can even put things in like create a step-by-step for this for someone with a high school education, and then it'll like build something that's simpler. This then creates, a basic step-by-step for whatever you've searched for. If you like it and you want to add it, this says replace a work plan or add to a new one. It's just because this work plan it's got some text in it already. So we'll add that. So it had this text in it already. So it's asking me, do I want to replace this with this new information or add to it? So now it's added it to the tasks. Once it's in, you can then click on it and you can edit it and change it. So use the AI if you need an example, if you just want to see, what's potentially out there for this work you're about to document. The library processes are for that intention as well, to give you some place to start with, but this is yet like another way to do that, to get examples. This icon here will convert a work plan into a checklist. So if I click this and then I say, okay, then it's just going to have created a checklist out of my work plan. So it's still a work plan. You can see it right here, but in addition, it's been made into a checklist. So let's go back here. This icon will allow you to move a tool out of a process into another process. So if I wanted to move this work plan out of this process into another, I'd click that icon. Now here I'm going to the 4 key functions. These are all my sub-functions. So I'd be hunting for the process I want to move this into, and then I hit move. I'm not going to move it, but that's how you would either combine processes or pull them apart by taking tools out. This icon is our print download. Next icon over is our archive. So this allows you to keep versions of your documentation. So if I wanted to edit and change this work plan, but I don't want to forget what it looks like originally, I can archive it by clicking this and saying, okay. And now it's taken a copy of this work plan and put it into the archive. Now I can edit and change this, but if I ever want to go here to see what did it used to look like, it gives you the date and time, and then you could restore it or just view it. Anytime you have a create user editing a process for any reason, I think it's always a good idea to have them archive it first, just so you can see the changes that were made. This is great if you deal with policy or rules, legal things around versioning and making sure that your procedures are updated, and then you have to prove that, then archive's great for that. This icon here is delete. So this will delete this work plan if I say okay. Now that work plan's gone. But if I don't want it to be gone, the work plan, I just click here on work plans again, and then I go up here to deleted, and then I can restore it. So nothing's actually gone forever. It's up here in the deleted. Any tool, I mean, if you delete the whole process, that's another thing, and we can restore it for you. But if you delete a tool within a process, you can always go here and restore it. Okay, let's talk about checklists quickly here. So to build a checklist, same idea as the work plan. I click the plus sign, and then it's asking me for the name of the checklist. Purpose, what's the purpose of the checklist? Why is it here? I feel like with checklists, it's even more important to say this, the objective, the purpose, because people tend to start in on doing a checklist because you've trained them to do it, and then maybe they stop doing it. But if they understand the ramifications of that, like why does this checklist exist? Why does management need it? Why do we need it for customer support? Why do we need it for other employees? Then there's more, it gives them more meaning and encourages people to actually fill it out. So I'm going to hit create checklist. So now you can see I've got this new checklist here. This was the one that we made out of the work plan, and this is the new one. So if I want to start to build this checklist, I go add checklist item, click the untitled field. So this is going to be one box right next to the first box. I hit save, add checklist item again. This is the second box. So pretty straightforward. With checklists, keep things simple. It's not meant to be a full-blown explanation of how to do this, how to do a customer complaint. It's really just a verification that the steps have been done. So keep these boxes very clear and easy. If you take a work plan like this one, and let's say I decided to make it into a checklist, click, now it's a checklist. I might even want to go, so here's the checklist now. I might even want to go in and like edit it down a little bit. So I don't maybe need to know all these things. All I need to know is that I'm gathering information. So you can clean them up a little bit and make it like really clear. Do this, tick, do this, tick, do this. There's also the AI in for checklists. So if you want to get an example of a checklist, you could build, there's probably not one that makes sense for customer complaints, but we can say opening the shop, create checklist. Then you go to the AI, create a checklist for opening a shop. And you should probably say more detail about what kind of shop, maybe. The more detailed you are with the prompt, the better the checklist is going to be. Hit go, and now same thing. It's building you a step-by-step, research and select a suitable location. Oh, so it took this as like opening a shop. I meant like opening for the day. So you see here how this really matters what you choose. If I don't like this by the way, I could just delete this and say opening a shop in the morning. And then I hit go, and it's just gonna replace what the old checklist was with the new. So there you go. Unlock the doors and turn on the signs. If I like this, I hit add to checklist, and now it just builds it into this step by step, which again, I can go and edit this and change things I don't like, move things around. So what I want to say about checklists is the purpose of the checklist is for quality control. It's for management purposes. It's for management information. So me knowing that something's been done without me having to ask you. It's a way of verifying for management purposes. There's all different reasons why a checklist would be important. Articulate what those reasons are in the checklist itself so people understand, and then require it to be used. So we've been talking a lot about management and working with employees and encouraging them to do this and telling them to do that. At the end of the day, you need to insist if you want things to be done a certain way. I would suggest if you want to create a game worth playing in the end where everyone wants to be there, then you have to create rules. You have to say this is okay and this is not okay. So when it comes to a checklist, if you're going to have it, then insist that it's used. If it's not going to be, if you're not going to insist that it's used, then don't have it. A work plan is a much better format to document the details that someone needs to learn than a checklist is. A checklist is only for verification that something has been done. Again, a work plan is a much better tool to put the detail in that you would need for training. So the only reason to have a checklist is if you need this type of verification. So don't over checklist people. Really examine why you need this, how often it should be filled out, if it's important and why, and then make sure that people are using it. So here through the dashboard is where checklists can be used. You can export them from the TouchStone and print them if you want. But here, these are just a few examples. Here's a new employee onboarding checklist. So here's a step-by-step or a checklist, and I would tick these boxes off. So right here on the dashboard, all the checklists you created with like 1 click or 2 clicks, a person can go to a checklist, they can save it as the employee who they're onboarding, and they hit save, and then it date and time stamps this and saves it back to TouchStone. So in pretty short order, if you build checklists, someone could even on the mobile device go create a group called checklists if you have that many of them to do checklists, finance end of year checklist. I go to this, fill out the checklist, save it. This is what I do every day. Save. Now a manager, if they want to make sure that checklists are being filled out, they can go here to reports and go to management review and then put in a start date or end date, put in the person that they're looking for, just search specifically for checklists and hit save. And then they see a list of all the checklists that Jack, because that's who I chose, has done over time. So if you have weekly or daily checklists, the manager who built that checklist, hopefully, or who is using that checklist, goes to make sure it's being filled out. And all they have to do, you saw how fast that was. You go to reports, you go to checklist, you fill out what you're looking for exactly. You do the date range and just hit run and you'll see everybody's and you see if they're there. If Jack did not do his checklist on one date that it dictated it was done, I would immediately go to the dashboard. I go here to assign. I choose Jack. I go to the checklist he's supposed to create. I give it a due date of the same day or the day next, and I say, you have to do this. This is why. And then you hit assign. Then he gets a notification saying you missed your checklist. He logs into TouchStone, goes to his control panel here. He sees over here his assignments. He clicks the checklist and fills it out. Then I get a notification saying he did it. So yes, this takes a certain amount of time to, first of all, look and see that they've done their checklist. So as a manager, I would look to see that they're done, just to look to see that they're done. Just to know, just so the employees know that I'm going to be looking to see if they're done. Or I would go and look at a checklist if I needed it for quantification. There was a customer complaint and I was worried about a step. There was a problem with onboarding employee. They didn't get what they needed. Did they actually get it? Let's look at the checklist. So all of the reasons why you built the checklist is why you might want to refer to it. But in addition to that, a manager just needs to check. They just need to check. Eventually, the employees are gonna know that you're checking and they'll stop, they'll do it because they're gonna know that the minute they didn't, that you're gonna be all over them. Now, as I'm describing this, if you're thinking to yourself, oh, this is just too much, I don't want to do it, well, then don't have a checklist. You know, that says to me that there's not a good enough reason for one. Because if there was a good enough reason, then these simple things that I'm explaining wouldn't seem that big of a deal. Managers need to manage their processes. They need to make sure that their employees are getting things done that they need to get done. So me up here, I need to make sure all 6 of these people are getting their result. They're following their processes. They're getting done what they need to get done. I'm going to be communicating with them in one-on-one meetings. I'm going to be holding their feet to the fire if necessary to make sure that things are happening. I'm going to be reviewing their checklists. That's the time that I need to spend as a manager to get this result of managing people with processes. It takes time. And the owners of the company need to give the managers the time to do that, first of all, and need to make it important. And then the managers need to step up and actually do the work. By doing that, you're then creating this culture of a process-dependent business, and you're creating an environment where people really thrive. And checklists can be important to that, but again, make sure managers are following through on those. So I'm going to go over a few minutes, but I want to talk about the process of the week next. Just know next week, we're going to go through the rest of the process tools, checklists, scripts, all of that. Not checklists, but scripts, forms, custom forms. And I'll explain, just like I did today, how to build them and then why and how they're used. So there's a new process in the library for those of you who haven't seen it. And I'm in guiding the business right here. And I'm going to go to general processes. And these are all grayed out because I already have them in my system. But if I scroll down to this process called Process Solutions for Management, I'm going to tick this off and then hit copy. Now TouchStone's downloaded it from the library and it's right here on the bottom of my management list. When you download a library process, just as a matter of fact, click it. Look it over and decide, is this a good process? Do you like it? Do you want to edit and change it at all? It doesn't have to be a long, vetting of it. If you like it and you want to keep it and use it, then go to here and link it to the job descriptions of the people who are responsible for it. So it would be like every manager for sure, because this is process solutions for management. And then now I've linked it to the job descriptions. Then I go here to the dashboard and I would assign it to the different managers. Say, hey, you have this new process. Give it a due date. I'd like you to review it. We're going to talk about it in our meeting. Please look it over before the meeting. And so now you've kind of taken that process and taken one step towards implementing it, which is getting people to use it. Sometimes it's as simple as just assigning it and they review it. You get the notification back that they did. Great. It's good to go. Or you want to sit and communicate about it, either in a one-on-one meeting or in a department meeting. If a manager goes to their control panel and you've assigned them or there's a new process, this default list is going to magically appear again. So I've got all my processes organized, into all of these neat little groups. If I have a new process, the default list is going to appear. So another thing that they'll do or should get in the habit of doing is just drag this to its right list. It's out of the default list and it's there for them to use. So I'm going to click it from here. What this is about is how to create a process solution for frustrations. So this is one of the pinnacles of management success. If you can take a frustration or a problem or an issue you're having with an employee and you can sort that through and think about what a process solution is, then you're going to start making real changes. Most of the time what happens is we're all running around trying to put out fires, right? This problem and this person's calling and that person's an issue. And I spend the whole day like putting out fires. And then, it's 6 o'clock and you're like, what did I do today? The problem with that is every time you put out a fire by fixing it temporarily or getting rid of it for now, it's just going to pop back up again. Unless there's a process solution put in place, unless there's a real solution put in place, it's just going to happen again and again and again. And we call this holes in the bucket. It's like your profitability draining out in a way because everybody's like repeating the same mistakes. And it may be very subtle. It might be the same mistake for 4 people once a quarter, but still, it's an issue. Another thing that you're doing as a manager by just putting out that fire is you're robbing your employees of the benefit of figuring it out on their own or learning about how they made that mistake and what to do next about it. This is difficult sometimes because you think that is going to cost you money. You think that is having your managers do that or you doing that. It's easier just to do it yourself, right? Than to stop and say, okay, I'm going to train you now. Oh, look at all the time and energy that takes. Well, believe me, it's way less than what it takes out of you for not addressing it. So this just describes some simple ideas about, frustrations and how they're experienced. This idea of it's self-directed, like I have this problem or frustration and I'm like, oh God, it's my fault. I'm doing it wrong. I'm the cause. It's outer directed, and managers tend to do this a lot. It's your fault, it's his fault, it's their fault, it's the customer's fault, it's that guy's fault. So it's outside of you. And then there's another way, which is process directed. This frustration is happening because there's a lack of a process in place to make sure that it doesn't happen. There's a breakdown or an absence of a process that causes the frustration. There's no process in place for this, so that's what we have to work on. It's not my fault or your fault. The next step is asking questions, stopping, asking questions about the frustration. Why is it happening? Where is it coming from? Why does it exist? How is it reoccurring? There's some tools in this process to help with that. So here's the process solutions form. So the idea with this is if I've got a frustration, I'm aware enough, as a manager in your culture, someone has taught me I don't want to be outer or inner directed to this. I want to be process centered with it. So how can we stop this from happening? What's bothering me? So you put the frustrations in this field. Then you ask yourself, is this self-directed, inner directed, or outer directed? That's important to think about. Each person should do enough self-diagnosis to say, okay, yeah, I'm blaming other people for this. It really is their problem. They should know. Why don't they know? Or I'm blaming myself. The idea is to blame the process, but choose self or outer because that's all about awareness of how you're thinking about it. And then write the process solution down in here. How do you reframe it? How do I say, instead of saying Sam shows up late for work all the time because he doesn't care about the company and he doesn't respect what I'm saying and he does this, he does that, or I'm too weak and busy to like address it with him because I don't like confrontation, so now it's my fault. When the real issue is you don't have a what happens when you show up late for work process. You don't have a verbal and written warning process. You don't have a one-on-one meeting process where your managers are sitting down and looking that person in the eye and saying, what's happening at home that's causing you to be late all the time? And what can we do about it? You don't have an employee termination process where if they show up 3 times in a row and they've been written up all 3 times, then, 3 strikes and you're out. So name the process here and then diagnose it a little bit further. So how is this affecting the business, the department, the team? What are some specific examples of how it occurs? How often does it occur? Who's involved with it? What are the results we aren't achieving because of this? What's the cost of this? This is important because it gets rid of that idea of, I can't think about this now. I'm too busy. I'm just going to fix it. I'm going to do it for you. Because if you really look at it and the cost breakdown of it, it brings more importance to it. Then you create decide if it's a high priority or not based on, all the analysis you did up here. And then this is how to build a process. Add a process with a title and objective to TouchStone. If it's another person's accountability for documenting, assign it to them from their dashboard. Decide if the process has multiple work plans. So just what we just talked about in its simplest forms. Does the process need checklists, scripts? Decide and create them. Then implement it by assigning it to all the people who are involved. So if this form, I think, is really cool if managers start to use it when these problems occur. One more thing before I let you go. There's also this form, a frustration tracker. So this can help you because everybody's busy. I get that. Everything I'm saying probably makes sense to you, but the implementing of it or the reality of it can sometimes be different. At least use this frustrations tracker. So put down frustrations that are happening, the business area it's affecting, what's missing, what's the process solution. Just write it out. Maybe you don't have time to stop and build the full-blown process right away, but at least you're tracking these things, right? You're tracking everything that's happening. This is an example. The receptionist shows up late 2 to 3 times a week. These are the areas that are affected. These are the missing results that are happening because of that. This is the impact it has on everybody. Here's the process solution. So that amount of thinking of it and planning of it can be really great. Then you can look at this frustrations list and maybe decide together in a management team meeting, who's going to do what. You can say, let's fix these 3 by next quarter. At least it has a place where you can document it. With a form like this, you fill this out and then you just save it. So now I've saved this form here. And if I go back here and I look to the right, here it is saved. So if I have another frustration the next day, I could run a report and find it in a few seconds. Or if you're in the process itself, you just click here and now I'm back to the same form. In other words, you don't have to create a new form every time. You just go back to this original form and continue working on it.